Here's a couple of problems adding and subtracting fractions. You can only add or subtract fractions if they have the same denominator. So for the later problems, we're going to go ahead and make sure they do have the same denominator before we add them. Now looking at the first problem, they do have the same denominator, 3 and 3. So what we do is we add the numerators. The denominator stays the same when you add. That gives me 8 over 3. So 4 plus 4 is 8. It is still over 3. This would be a good place to stop. Some people want to turn it into a mixed number, which is fine. However, on the EOC, that is not an acceptable answer. So we're going to go ahead and leave it as an improper fraction. That's what I prefer anyways. Over here, we have subtraction. We do have the same denominator, 15, so we just subtract. 7 minus 2 is 5, and it is over 15. Now there is a catch, there usually is, especially when it comes to fractions. This cannot be the final answer. This was the final answer because we could not simplify the top and bottom. There was no number that could divide into 3 and 8. Here, the number 5 can divide into 5 and 15. That's called the greatest common factor. So we divide the top and bottom by the GCF, or the greatest common factor, that's 5. And our final answer is going to end up being 1/3. For the next problem, we have an issue, and I'm going to go ahead and use a different color for the next two problems because we have different denominators. So we have to look for the least common denominator or the least common multiple between 7 and 14. So that is going to be 14 because 7 can divide into 14 and 14 can divide into 14. So my denominators are going to be 14. This one is already 14, so I know the top is 5. So I have to think 7 times what gives me 14? That is 7 times 2, so I multiply the top and bottom by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And when I add them up, I end up with 11 over 14, and that is my final answer. It cannot be simplified because 11 is a prime number. Last but not least, our final problem, we have to find the least common denominator between these two. It looks like that number is going to be 20 because 20 can divide into 20 and 5 can divide into 20. So since my denominators have to be 20, this one already is, so I know it's 13. I have to think 5 times what gives me 20? And that's going to be 4. 5 times 4 gives me 20, so I multiply the top and bottom by 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Now I subtract. 13 minus 8 gives me 5 over 20, but just like before, just like up here, that can't be our final answer because we can simplify it more. And this is just a coincidence. We have the same GCF here as we do here. It's going to be 5. So we divide the top and bottom by 5. So our final answer ends up being 1/4. That is our final answer. Go ahead and respond to this post if you have any questions.